Good morning or afternoon. Today is a continuation on American history, lesson 4.2. Last time we discussed the immoral treatment of native nations from colonialists during the years of 1492 to 1830. You also gave a lot of thought on what it means to be moral. We reviewed some of the nations here when colonialists began to settle, the resistance that natives had towards European settlers, and the back-and-forth battle native nations had in keeping their land after the Revolutionary War. Today we're going to discuss the Trail of Tears. First, let's discuss the question, why is it important to remember difficult parts of history? The Trail of Tears stands out amongst the many injustices against native nations for its extreme violence and blatant indifference towards the native people. So you may be wondering, if this piece of history is so difficult to remember, why is it important to learn? Because of this, I want you to listen to today's lesson with that question in mind. I want you to think about how these people must have felt, what could have been done differently, and how you would feel if something like this happened today. What would you say? What would you do? I also want you to think about how their ancestors must feel about it today. So let's begin. Like many white Americans at the time, Andrew Jackson was a proponent of what he called Indian removal. You have learned that Native Americans call themselves by various other names, including Indians, if that's what they choose. However, at the time, Indian was a broad and incorrect name applied to the people of all native tribes, regardless of the language they used or their location. The main concept was removing natives from their land so that white Americans could settle there without resistance. This escalated into the 1830s when Andrew Jackson signed one of the many acts to remove native tribes from their lands. This one was called the Indian Removal Act, and it gave the government power to exchange native lands in present-day Mississippi for those in present-day Oklahoma. Although the law required a peaceful, non-violent, and voluntary process for this removal, these stipulations went entirely ignored by Jackson. In 1831, the Choctaw people were the first to be vacated from their homes. A historian writes that they were bound in chains and marched double file as they made the journey on foot to these new designated lands. They had no food or supplies, and thousands of their people died on the journey. A Choctaw leader described it as a trail of tears and death. In 1835, the Treaty of New Echota was proposed. While some of the members of the Cherokee Nation agreed to it, they represented only a small portion of the Cherokee people. The Treaty of New Echota would have potentially sold Cherokee land west of the Mississippi to the U.S. for $5 million. It was ratified by the Senate but rejected by the rest of the Cherokee tribe. They were given 2 years to leave. When they did not, they were driven out by force. In the meantime, 1836, the Creeks were forced to leave their homes as well. 3,500 of them did not survive that journey. Then, in March of 1838, 16,000 Cherokees from Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina were forced out of their homes by federal soldiers and state militia and made to travel 5,043 miles. A quarter of the Cherokee population was killed in the journey for various reasons. The 4 main ones are: 1. Disease, which was either contracted while in containment camps awaiting removal or in the new lands after their removal. 2. Exhaustion from vigorous travel and harsh elements. 3. Starvation or malnutrition. And 4. Resisting removal. Many of these people were buried in unmarked graves. By the 1840s, most native nations were confined to what was labeled as Indian Territory. However, in 1907, the territory officially became the U.S. state of Oklahoma, making it so that there was no Indian Territory at all. Now that we have gone over a sober piece of the American puzzle, let's revisit our question. Why is it important to remember difficult parts of history? Well, consider this. Today, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians is a sovereign nation with over 14,000 members. There is a museum dedicated to their culture as well. These people cannot forget this part of history you have just learned. There are also other nations with reservations and deep-rooted culture. Some others live in the city. They're people and we're people. We live together for better or worse. October 12th is Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a day to respect them and reflect upon our past mistakes. We must learn from the past. We have to consider what it means to be living in the United States and what it cost for this country to be what it is today. Keep thinking about that and have a good rest of your day.